Okay, well, thanks for having me. I am excited to be here for a virtual tour of Lower Cowiche Creek Floodplain Restoration 2021, unofficial name, take 2. So many of you know this project has some history with Surfboard and our organization, and I'll try to explain that and the project and just kind of show you the site virtually. Just as a reminder, the project is, the idea here is to improve aquatic riparian and floodplain habitat by removing this railroad berm and some concrete and bank armoring, getting it out of the floodplain and replacing it with a native riparian zone. And the project benefits Mid-Columbia steelhead, bull trout, coho, and spring chinook. Cowiche Creek is a tributary to the Natchez. So this is the Natchez River right here, and then Cowiche Creek is right here, flowing this direction. This is Highway 12. This is Cowiche Canyon Road. There's been a lot of restoration done on Cowiche Creek, both downstream and upstream of this site. Our project area is just right here, so just upstream from Powerhouse Road. This one's Powerhouse Road. And Ryan Dienecker went out with a drone last week and took some great pictures for us. So almost all of this presentation is thanks to him. So here's the project area. So this is Cowiche Canyon Road. Powerhouse Road would be above, off the screen to the top. This area right here is City of Yakima property that will become the trailhead for the William O. Douglas Trail Foundation. And if you're familiar with these old Cowiche projects, this is a site that's commonly called Ketchin, where we did some work in 2017 under a past Surfboard grant. This project will remove this portion of the railroad berm, 830 feet of a 900-foot railroad berm. So the top part will be removed by the city as part of the trail construction project that they're planning next year. So the trail will come through here, cross the stream right in this vicinity, and then go up along the slope and connect back with the railroad berm on the far side of the creek. And I'll show you that. And the history of this is we had a Surfboard grant for this project and some other work in Cowiche Creek that we were awarded in the past. And we were able to do the other parts of the grant, and we were able to design this berm removal, but we weren't able to get the project to implementation at that time, just because of uncertainties around this trail. So the city has come really a long way in their trail design. Their, I think 60% preliminary plans are due this month, and they expect to have final plans by July and construct next year. And the trail advocates are on board with both the city's trail plans and with restoration. They've written a letter of support for the restoration project, and that's in Prism. So here we're looking downstream. Okay, so this next picture, we're looking upstream. So we're at the downstream end of the project, looking at the berm upstream. And for scale, that is 2 people, Ryan Dienecker and Kat Strathman. And you can kind of see this big 90-degree turn. This is a good reference point as we look at the pictures and maps. Our project area will start just downstream of this. So the city removing that first 70 feet of the berm, us removing 830 feet. There'll eventually be that trail bridge right through here. And this berm is a really big feature on the landscape. It completely constricts the stream, it cuts off the floodplain, literally cuts off the floodplain. Here are floodwaters that get behind the berm and then can't get back to the stream. So you'll see that in these pictures. Oh, I think I went the wrong way. Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay. The project was fully designed with funding from that past Surfboard grant. So this is that 90-degree turn that I pointed out in the last slide. And the project area that we're looking at is this portion. This work in green here was done in 2017, and this area over here we're not proposing for work right now due to the city's bridge construction plans and just uncertainties around that. So our budget does include some updating to the plans since it has been several years. Here's a ground level shot of that same area at the downstream end. So you can see this is a pretty big feature. It's probably 15 feet across and wider across at the top, wider at the bottom, and it's 5 or 6 feet above the normal ground level. We estimate there's 5,000 cubic yards of material to take off the floodplain. Just a cross section from the designs of what the berm looks like in some places. This is at that downstream end. So you can see, right, the creek, how deep it is, really how large this feature is compared to the creek. And then this, you know, overflow water that can't get back to back into the creek. The berm doesn't really provide flood control function too, if you're thinking about that. It's not maintained as a flood control structure. Water gets behind it, doesn't get back in it, but it's also not a levee or flood control structure. So back to Ryan's aerials, these are just, we're gonna move upstream with these pictures. I'm seeing all these questions pop into the chat. What's the protocol? Am I supposed to answer these as I go, or is it better to go through the slides?
It's totally up to you.
Okay, Elizabeth asked if it's a borrow ditch. I don't know. There's certainly places where further upstream where water gets behind and runs and has created a little ditch. This water looks kind of stagnant, so I don't know. Becca, do you think this is a borrow ditch?
It looks a lot like a borrow ditch. I could see them scooping out there to put the material into the railroad alignment.
And Elizabeth also asked if we're going to be filling the borrow ditch to historic level. The idea is to pull back the bank to a 2.5 to 1 grade. So this whole area will change. And so we need to do a wetlands delineation and get a core permit, and I'm not sure what they're going to require of us in that area, but it is not a natural feature the way it is. It's there because of the railroad berm. So our hope is to create a natural floodplain and the riverine wetlands associated with it. Okay, we're just kind of going upstream a little bit here. You can see a little more of that area. So there's the city of Yakima owns the railroad grade, and then there's 2 private landowners. So this is one, and then the second one is over here. These folks have already started revegetating the floodplain in preparation for the berm to be removed. So that patch, you can see that right here. That's native floodplain grasses that they have planted, getting ready for this project. And there again for scale is Kat and Ryan. So you can see the berm, how it constrains the creek. That causes the stream to have a high velocity, kind of moves out any kind of structure, wood, down cuts, and all of the associated issues. It also prevents, you know, a native riparian zone from establishing. Instead, there's a lot of invasives here, and there's a lot of armoring. Cowiche Creek is on the 303D list for temperature and nutrients. Just kind of zooming along in the drone. Love this technology. Just another like look at the cross section of the berm, kind of in the location around where Kat and Ryan were standing. I don't really have talking points for all these slides, but they're really great. It's just fun to see the project from the air. Okay, we're getting down toward the downstream end of the project area. So there's another curve. So the railroad grade went on one side of the creek and then crossed back over to the far side of the creek. What I have learned over time is that railroads don't like to take turns. So when they built railroads down valleys, you just cross the creeks all over the place, wherever it was easy, so that they could avoid turning. What our project will remove the railroad grade to here, and then there's a little bit of work beyond that I'll show you. The trail would come around, the William O. Douglas Trail that'll be built next year will come around on this hill slope and then connect back up with the railroad grade here. And my hope is that these projects could be done nearer together in time, so that potentially some of the fill from this material could be used for any building on the trail. And that would save both projects some money. Just looking again at that connection, you can also see there's a few boulders in Cowiche Creek providing some habitat diversity. Okay, so we're starting to kind of be able to see around the corner here. This is that concrete lined stream bank at the bottom of this berm. There's an irrigation takeout here from one of the participating landowners. And at the downstream end of that, it's super armored with these huge boulders. So our project will, oh, here we are, right? So this is right down here. This will remove that concrete bank. And this is the cross section of the concrete bank. And the stream, you can see it's really deep and narrow in that section. It's about 30 feet long. So we'll move that irrigation takeout back. Our 2014 design plans were all done by Anchor QEA. And they designed 3 rock weir structures to back water up for this irrigation takeout. We're going to relook at that design as part of this grant to just confirm that that's still the best approach. And we'll also be rerunning the flood hazard model and just kind of relooking at everything. We have the design, but we want to make sure it's the best and updated and that it reflects current conditions. It may be that we end up with a different design from those 3 rock weirs that we had originally designed here. An aerial look at that area and a ground level look at that. So this image is looking downstream past our project. No, I'm sorry, looking upstream past our project, just from, so that top area of the project with that concrete berm would be just beyond or at the bottom of this image. And this is what the creek looks like as it goes further upstream, and the railroad grade future trail. And just a little bit higher and further out image of that same area. There's the creek, goes this way. This site down here is a restoration project that we did in 2010 that removed 1,400 feet of dikes on a City of Yakima property that people call Jenner John. And then we also worked on this property right here, a private landowner who had about 500 feet of stream bank that was covered in concrete. And we removed that in 2013 as part of that older surfboard grant. So kind of stitching the projects together here. Here's our proposed project area. That's that 2010 project that I pointed out, the further one with the 1,400 feet of dikes, and then this smaller one on the private property, removing the concrete. And then also in 2017, we worked at that site just adjacent to the proposed project area. And that's this area right here. And that'll be the future trailhead with the parking down here. We had a question after the technical advisory committee presentations about flood inundation, and that was a great question. I hadn't really addressed that very well in the application, so I will amend the application to add in that information. In 2014, Anchor QEA modeled they took all these cross sections, updated the county information, and then modeled the floodplain. This is a 100-year flood model, so this dark blue line is the existing condition, 100-year flood elevation or where inundation area. And then the blue, the light blue shaded area is with the berm removed, the proposed project. So this will be updated for the current condition, but I don't expect it to change a lot. The interesting thing that we learned at the time in 2014 was that the county flood maps don't consider the berm. They consider it, the berm is not a flood control structure, so they look at flood inundation as if the berm wasn't there because it is not maintained, or it's not designed or maintained as a flood control structure. So yeah, we'll update this map, but in general, I think it's safe to say that the project makes a slight reduction in flood inundation area. And by removing the berm, we're making the floodplain a little bit bigger, has a little bit more capacity. We're not expecting that the project would need, well, we're not expecting that we need to do no rise mitigation, that the project does not create a rise. Another comment we had after the first presentation was just to have more detail for the construction budget. So we have gone ahead and put that detail in, and I'll be uploading that to Prism. This is what the construction budget looks like based on a quote from the contractor. We have put this project out to bid in 2014. And so we had a contractor lined up at that time. If we get awarded a grant and are able to move forward with implementation, we'll do another competitive bid process, of course. But that contractor updated their prices based on their old bid, and that's what informs this budget. And then we have an A&E portion of the budget that includes support from an engineer to update the design and to help us with construction oversight and to do our coordination with the landowners and partners and the bid process, that sort of thing. So the summary grant request is almost $343,000, and we do expect we'll need an additional grant. We're hoping to go to the Department of Ecology for an additional grant. I think we wanted to keep the surfboard ask not too giant. So this image is at a project we implemented at the end of Cowiche Canyon Road in 2009. That's Katrina Strathman, and this is at this site we removed about 700 feet of railroad berm and replanted, and she's standing right in the area where the railroad berm was and where the replanting happened. And this picture was taken in 2018, so the plants are even bigger now. And there's Kat and Ryan. I wanted to really thank Ryan for doing the drone flight. It gave us some really nice images of the project area, and it's really cool. So that's the last slide I have for you, but I would love to talk about the project and answer your questions.
Jeanette, was your question addressed fully?
No, not quite. Margaret, I was asking, when you were showing the pictures, you showed where the railroad berm continues across on the right side, looking downstream, and where the trail's going to connect. Were you removing any of that initial railroad grade there on the right side, or just on the upstream left side?
Let's see. Am I getting close to the picture you're thinking of? Let's see.
Keep going.
Okay. Here, somewhere here. Yeah, here we go. This fill right here. Is that
Let's
what
see.
you're?
Is that where the trail goes, is going to end up connecting, just near there?
Yeah,
That
it'll
picture
probably
right there.
connect down here. And
Yeah.
there is some fill here that could be removed. We're not proposing it as part of this grant, but I hope that we will have money and do that with the implementation. The city's trail plans aren't quite far enough along right now, even though they're planning implementation in 2022. They'll have their 60% design, and I'm thinking that we might be able to remove this fill, but I didn't want to include it as part of this proposal because I'm not 100% sure how that is all going to work out. I suspect the city may end up with additional mitigation from their work, and so some of the work on the far side might be able to be done by them as part of mitigation for the impacts of the trail, but I'm just not sure. So because we expect to go for another grant to fill out the project budget, if there are opportunities like this fill, we can add those to that other grant.
Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to know.
Yeah, okay.
Doug had a question about soil conditions.
Yeah.
And yeah, whether there's been testing for hazardous contamination.
No, there has not. We have done those other projects. There is a lot of junk in Cowiche Creek. It tends to be concrete, rock. At the site we worked on in 2009, there was a lot of actual garbage and appliances and stuff. I don't think we've done any testing. Becca, do you have any additional information on that?
No, I don't. I was wondering if Doug did.
No, I just know that there used to be a railroad grade and it wouldn't be out of the question for there to be things that, because of that, that may cause you a problem if you're unaware of them. But I'm not aware of anything other than the physical garbage that you cleaned up a lot of, but there's still more. But as far as soil contamination, it's just something that could be there.
Yeah, at this particular site, we haven't had culturals finished, so we haven't been able to like dig into the ground. But it's a good thing to think about.
Well, I wouldn't think that cultural would be too affected on top of the grade, but anyway, because the railroad ties and all that other stuff are got dirty stuff on them sometimes.
Yeah.
Pat Powers had a question.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Pat.
Yeah, I have a great memory of doing a site review at this place many years ago when this lady came out and said, if you don't like snakes, ticks, and mosquitoes, you might as well get back in the van because we've got all of them. But anyways, I had a question on the irrigation diversion. I didn't see anything on the plans. I guess I did. There was a detail for some porous rock weirs, but it wasn't clear if there was like an elevation that needed to be maintained there, and like a stream profile through that reach, so we could see what the different options may be for that.
Let me see if I can pull up the plans here. There is some detail on the plans, but it's not very much. And I don't know the answer to the elevation question. Give me a second and I'll bring the plans up. Yeah, the engineer had designed these 3 porous weirs, and then the irrigation is going to be set back. I think the bank slope is going to be like 2 to 1 at that area. Somebody who is better at reading plans than me could probably pull that off of here. Let me show you. So the plans have this detail on the rock weir.
Yeah, I saw that.
It didn't feel like a lot to me, so I didn't put it in the presentation, but there's also, you know, this cross section here, and this is the spot. So, yeah, it adds a little, this irrigation withdrawal adds some complexity to the project that would otherwise be a little simpler.
I know one of the things that just from other surfboard projects I've seen around the state that have been in this situation, putting something downstream like a constructed riffle is often a little bit more resilient and you know, easier to maintain. But I guess without like a profile or something through there, I was having a hard time trying to understand what the site looks like.
Yeah, when I talked to Bob Montgomery, our engineer, a couple months ago about this project, we discussed like kind of having another look at that area ahead of, you know, as part of this process, and I have that in the budget. So I think a constructive riffle might be I don't know, an updated design that might be good in this spot, but I'm gonna defer to Bob Montgomery on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Margaret. This is Kirk Holmes. And
Hi, Kirk.
So I'm a citizen committee member now up for in the city of Ellensburg and Kittitas County. But as you know, we're the design lead on the Cowiche Trail project. So we may have some information that you may be able to grab onto, some updated modeling, and as well as some of our environmental work is done. All of our environmental work is done, including wetland delineation. So in the spirit of cooperation, just make sure you reach out to us or the city. But if you're welcome to reach out directly to us, and we can give you whatever information we have that might be helpful.
Absolutely. I have been in touch with your staff and they've been great. And
Yeah, great.
Really, I guess I want to shout out to the city for getting this, like the trail project is really hard, and getting it to this point and getting your implementation is great and a huge step forward, and the restoration couldn't happen without it. So, and
Well,
Petite's been a big part of that.
yeah. I will vouch for the mosquitoes and rattlesnakes comment a little while ago in that area. So step lightly if you're ever out there. That is a direct experience quote, so for sure. But it's a beautiful area, and can't wait to see this all happen.
Thanks, Kirk. I see Alex had a question in the chat box. Is wetland mapping typing complete? No. Do you anticipate 401, 404 permit issues giving wetland area behind the berm and likely Linthic 2 Lodic conversion? Yeah. We're gonna do a wetlands delineation once we know that we have funding, and work with the Corps to do any kind of mitigation. I'm not exactly sure what they would require in this kind of situation where it's not a natural wetland and it's not a high quality feature. It's literal disconnection of the floodplain.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that start early and figure out what they're doing, because this is something where that process has gotten a lot more challenging over the last few years with the Corps. So what was said in 2014 might not be what they're saying in 21.
In 2014, they were fine. They were, it was not an issue,
Right.
but I expect it to be like a more rigorous or, I don't know, involved process this time. So Jen Smith, there's a question in the chat box. I think that's the one I answered already, right?
No, I was just trying to get you alluded to some of the work you've done in the area in addition to this, and I was trying to get some idea of what else needs to be done. You're not proposing to do anything in channel here. I'm not sure why or if that's necessary, but I just wanted some context for that, how this project fits in with the whole reach that you're working in.
Yeah, so there is a lot of important work going on throughout Cowiche Creek, not just by Mid-Columbia Fisheries, but by the county and the conservation district. This project is a big priority. There's, I think, a little bit more to do right at this site than we included in the plans, like I talked about earlier. Just I wasn't able to include them now because of the some uncertainties around the trail and how it would all kind of work together. But because we need a second grant to like have the full budget, we'll look to include those elements in that other grant. In terms of other projects like further upstream, there may be some in the future, but they're not, they're not together they're not ready for a public vetting.
Yeah, I'm reminded, Jeanette, that our restoration ecologist did walk Lower Cowiche Creek a couple years back and assess where things are. And that makes me want to go back and take a look at what her recommendations were at that point. Nothing when she did that walk, nothing was urgent and available and ready for us to move on, but it's worth revisiting assessments like that from time to time.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Good place for flowers right now. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it's such a
Disconnected.
beautiful area.
Yeah. Disconnected floodplain notwithstanding. Anything else that the TAG members or CC members would like to ask at this point or point out?
Well, thanks for all your good questions and comments and support and patience with this project. I think everybody knows where to find Becca and I. So if you have, ideas or further thoughts or questions on this project, please feel free to reach out or through Michael.
And I want to thank you, just for the great graphics and just all the views of the canyon that you showed that helped me familiarize myself better.
All gratitude to Yakima Nation for that. Those were really nice pictures and we're really appreciative of Ryan for taking them for us. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.